there is a kind of pain that nobody talks about. It does not show up on the outside. You are not crying in public. You are not falling apart at work. You are not making scenes or breaking things. From the outside, you look perfectly fine. But inside, there is this quiet heaviness that never seems to leave. You still think about them. You still replay those conversations over and over in your mind. You still wonder what you could have said differently. You still picture how things might have turned out if only one small thing had changed. And even though you are exhausted from all of it, you cannot seem to stop. Your heart is tired, but your mind refuses to let go. And here is the part that most people never realize. You are not suffering because you loved someone. You are suffering because you are attached to them. And those two things, love and attachment, they are not the same thing at all. Most of us were never taught the difference. We grew up believing that if you truly love someone, you should think about them constantly. You should feel anxious when they are not around. You should need them in order to feel complete. We were told that real love is supposed to be intense, consuming, almost painful. And so when we feel that tightness in our chest, that panic when they pull away, that desperate need for reassurance, we call it love. We wear it like a badge of honor. We say things like, "I love them so much it hurts." But what if that hurt is not love at all? What if it is fear dressed up in love's clothing? That is exactly what Buddhism has been teaching for thousands of years. And today, I want to walk you through something that could genuinely change the way you experience every relationship for the rest of your life. Not by making you cold, not by making you push people away, but by helping you understand the difference between holding someone in your heart and holding them hostage in your mind. Let us start with something simple but powerful. In Buddhism, there is a concept called metta. It means loving kindness. And it describes the purest form of love, a genuine wish for another person to be happy, safe, healthy, and free from suffering. Notice what is not included in that definition. There is no mention of needing them to stay. There is no mention of requiring them to behave a certain way. There is no demand that they make you feel secure or complete. Metta is love without conditions. It is love without a leash. Now compare that to what most of us actually practice in our relationships. We do not just love people. We cling to them. We wrap our entire identity around their presence. We make their responses the foundation of our emotional stability. When they text back quickly, we feel safe. When they do not, we spiral. When they say the right things, we feel worthy. When they are distant, we question everything about ourselves. That is not love. That is what Buddhism calls tanha, which means craving or thirst. It is the desperate need for things to be a certain way in order for us to feel okay. And craving is never really about the other person. It is about us. It is about our fear of being alone, our fear of not being enough, our fear that without this particular person or this particular outcome, we will somehow be incomplete. When you are attached to someone, you are not truly asking, "How can I love this person well?" You are asking, "How can this person make me feel secure?" And that question changes everything. Because now, the relationship is no longer about connection, it is about control. You are trying to manage another human being's behavior so that your own anxiety stays manageable. Think about how that shows up in real life. You overanalyze their messages. You read into every pause, every emoji, every change in tone. You compare how quickly they responded today versus yesterday. You interpret their need for space as rejection. You see their independence as a threat. You feel personally attacked when they make a choice that does not center you. None of that is love. All of it is fear of impermanence. And impermanence is one of the most important teachings in all of Buddhism. Everything changes. That is not a pessimistic statement. It is simply the truth. Your body changes. Your emotions change. Seasons change. Relationships change. The person you fell in love with 5 years ago is not the same person sitting across from you today, and you are not the same person either. Both of you are evolving, growing, shifting, becoming something new every single day. When you expect a person to remain exactly as they were when you first fell for them, you are not loving a human being. You are loving a snapshot. You are loving a frozen moment that no longer exists. And when reality refuses to match that snapshot, you suffer. But here is the beautiful paradox. When you accept that everything changes, you actually start appreciating things more deeply. Because you know this moment will not last forever, you pay more attention to it. You stop taking people for granted because you understand that their presence in your life is not guaranteed. You stop rushing through conversations because you realize each one could be the last one like this. Impermanence does not rob life of meaning. It gives life its meaning. It makes every shared laugh, every quiet evening together, every simple act of kindness incredibly precious. Now let us talk about something that almost everyone does, but almost nobody admits to. We create invisible contracts in our relationships. We write up these long, detailed agreements in our minds about how other people should behave. We expect our partner to understand us without us having to explain. We expect our friends to show up in exactly the way we would show up for them. We expect our family to approve of our choices and support us unconditionally. And we never actually tell these people about any of these expectations. We just silently assume they know the terms. And then when they fail to meet these unspoken agreements, we feel betrayed. We feel hurt. We feel like they let us down. But they never agreed to any of it. They never signed anything. They did not even know the contract existed. Most of the disappointment you feel in relationships is not caused by cruelty. It is caused by mismatched expectations. You created a mental image of how a loving partner should behave, how a good friend should respond, how a supportive family member should show up, and then you compared real, flawed, imperfect, distracted human beings to that image. When they fell short, you suffered. Not because they violated reality, but because they violated your imagination. Expectations are really just attempts to control what is inherently uncontrollable. Other people's thoughts, feelings, and choices. You cannot control whether someone understands you. You cannot control whether someone values you the same way you value them. You cannot control whether someone stays or goes. Yet your entire emotional stability often depends on the assumption that you can. That is a fragile way to live, and there is something even deeper going on beneath all of this. Something most people never want to look at. It is outcome addiction. You do not just want things to work out, you want them to work out your way. You tell yourself you are being patient, that you are going with the flow, that you are trusting the process. But underneath all that calm language is a very specific picture of how this story is supposed to end. You want the relationship to survive. You want the apology. You want them to realize what they had. You want your family to finally get it. And if you are being completely honest with yourself, you do not just prefer these outcomes. You are emotionally dependent on them. Notice what this does to your daily life. Your mood rises and falls based on tiny external signals. A warm text and you feel hopeful. A delayed response and you feel anxious. A compliment and you feel worthy. A criticism and you feel crushed. You are not living in the present moment. You are living in constant anticipation, always scanning the horizon for evidence that things are going your way. And when they are not, you suffer. Not because the situation is terrible, but because it does not match the script you wrote in your head. Buddhism is very clear about this. You control your effort. You control your intention. You do not control the outcome. You can love someone with everything you have. You can communicate honestly. You can show up consistently. But whether they choose you, whether they stay, whether they reciprocate, that is not up to you. And when you confuse what is yours to control with what is not, suffering becomes inevitable. Now here is something that gets even harder to hear. This same pattern shows up with family and friends, and for most people it cuts even deeper than romantic attachment. You expect your parents to validate you. You expect your siblings to understand your journey. You expect your closest friends to remain loyal and consistent forever. And when they do not, the pain feels sharper than anything else because you never expected it from them. You thought they were safe. You thought they were permanent. You thought that at the very least, the people who have known you the longest would be the ones who never let you down. But your family members are not enlightened guardians of your emotional world. They are human beings with their own fears, their own conditioning, their own limitations. They are dealing with their own pain, their own confusion, their own struggles that you may never fully understand. When you expect them to always say the right thing, to always support your decisions, to always prioritize your feelings, you are placing unrealistic demands on imperfect people. And when they fail, resentment grows quietly in the background. Friends are the same. People change, priorities shift, lives move in different directions. Someone who was your closest confidant 5 years ago might barely be in your life today. Not because they betrayed you, not because they stopped caring, but because life carried them somewhere else. And if you take that personally, if you interpret their natural evolution as abandonment, you create suffering where none was intended. Here is what you need to understand. No external relationship, no matter how deep or meaningful, can permanently secure your inner peace. If your stability depends on other people behaving predictably, your stability will always be fragile. People are companions on your journey. They are not the foundation of your being. And the moment you stop expecting them to be your emotional insurance policy, you free both yourself and them. Now let us talk about what happens when you actually start to let go. Because here is what nobody warns you about. It does not feel good at first. It does not feel like liberation or enlightenment or peace. It feels like something is being ripped away from you. It feels like defeat. It feels like you are giving up on something that mattered deeply, and every part of you resists it. That resistance is not coming from love. It is coming from your ego. Your ego is the part of you that wants to be right. It wants to be chosen. It wants to win. It wants to feel significant in someone else's story. When you begin to detach, your ego interprets it as failure. It whispers things like, if you stop fighting for this, you are weak. If you walk away, they win. If they do not choose you, it means you were never enough. And so you cling. Not because the connection is healthy. Not because holding on serves you. But because your ego cannot stand the idea of letting go without getting the ending it wanted. Sometimes you are not holding on because of love. You are holding on because you do not want to accept that things did not unfold the way you imagined. You want closure on your terms. You want the narrative to validate your effort. You want to feel like all that pain meant something. And so you keep replaying. Keep analyzing, keep hoping that if you just hold on a little longer, reality will rearrange itself to match your expectations. But what you are actually afraid of is not losing them. You are afraid of facing yourself without them. You are afraid of sitting in the silence and realizing how much of your identity was built around that relationship. You are afraid of the emptiness that comes when you stop defining yourself through someone else's presence. And that fear keeps you stuck. But here is what Buddhism teaches about that emptiness. It is not something to be afraid of. Emptiness in the Buddhist sense does not mean nothingness. It means openness. It means possibility. It means space. When the illusion falls away, when the fantasy dissolves, when the story you rehearsed 1,000 times in your head finally stops playing, you are not left with nothing. You are left with yourself, your awareness, your values, your ability to love again, your ability to rebuild, and what you discover in that space might surprise you. You discover that you were never actually incomplete. You discover that the wholeness you were searching for in another person was inside you the entire time. You discover that your worth was never determined by whether someone chose you or stayed with you or loved you back. Your worth was always there. Attachment just made it feel conditional. When you stop clinging, something remarkable happens to your relationships. They get better, not because the other person changed, but because you changed. You stop monitoring people for signs of withdrawal. You stop keeping score of who gave more. You stop interpreting every small shift as a threat. You start showing up because you want to, not because you need to secure something. You start giving without silent contracts. You start loving without needing it to last forever in order to matter. And that kind of love is lighter. It breathes. It does not suffocate. It does not demand. It simply exists, freely and fully, in the present moment. This is what detachment really means. It does not mean you stop caring. It does not mean you become cold or distant or closed off. It means you stop trying to control what was never yours to control. It means you love without ownership. It means you connect without dependency. It means you hold people gently instead of gripping them tightly. It means you allow life to unfold without demanding that it follow your script. And when you live this way, peace stops being something you chase. It becomes something you carry. It does not depend on whether someone texts you back. It does not depend on whether the relationship survives. It does not depend on whether your family approves or your friends stay close. Your peace becomes yours. Fully, completely, unconditionally yours. Some chapters of your life will be long and beautiful. Others will be short and painful. Some people will walk beside you for decades. Others will pass through like seasons. None of that determines your value. None of that defines who you are. You are not the roles you play. You are not the relationships you hold. You are not the outcomes you achieve. You are the awareness beneath all of it. And that awareness is always whole, always calm, always free. So if you are holding on to something right now, a person, a hope, an outcome, a version of the future that keeps you up at night, I want you to hear this clearly. Letting go is not the end of your story. It is the clearing of everything that was never real so that something truer can take its place. You are not losing love. You are losing the illusion that love requires chains. You are not losing yourself. You are finding the version of yourself that does not need anyone else's permission to be at peace. Release the grip. Release the expectation. Release the need for the story to end exactly the way you imagined. What remains when you do that is not emptiness. What remains is freedom. The freedom to love without fear. The freedom to live without clinging. The freedom to be whole no matter who stays and no matter who walks away. If this message reached something real inside you today, if even one part of it made you pause and think differently about the way you have been holding on to people or outcomes, then do me a small favor. Hit the like button right now. Subscribe to Buddhism Focus so you never miss a video like this. And share this with someone who needs to hear it, someone who is quietly suffering because they have confused attachment with love. Drop a comment below and tell me what part of this spoke to you the most. I read every single comment, and I truly believe that when we share these conversations openly, we help each other heal. Your peace was never meant to depend on someone else staying. It was always meant to live inside you. Take care of yourself, and I will see you in the next video.